Well, China has lodged a complaint against Australia with the World Trade Organisation over Australia's anti-subsidy and anti-dumping measures against Chinese railway wheels, wind towers and stainless steel sinks. Joining me live now is the Trade and Tourism Minister Dan Tehan. Minister, good to see you in person.
Good to see you.
Now, is this revenge?
Look, you'd have to ask that question of the Chinese government. The normal way that these disputes are initiated is that you would raise these issues in WTO committees, you would raise them bilaterally. Now, that hasn't occurred. But the reasons for this move now by China and some of these duty measures go back to 2014-15. You'd have to ask them.
Well, I mean, a lot of people are pointing to the fact that we're taking China to the WTO over wine. It only happened recently. So this happened a few days later. Seems to me there's a link there.
Yes, well, look, you'd have to ask them for the reasons. On Saturday, we did make the decision to take China to the WTO with regards to the duties and countervailing duties they put on our wine. Now, this followed us making representations to the Chinese government, raising this in WTO committees over the last 2 to 3 months. So there's a process which is normally followed. Now, obviously, we found out yesterday, initially through our Geneva mission, that China were going to take these measures, and we'll defend them robustly. We have an anti-dumping commission here in Australia. It's an independent body. We obviously take our WTO obligations incredibly seriously, and we'll robustly defend the action we've taken.
So we've had tariffs on these Chinese-made train wheels, right, and these wind turbines since 2019. So why would it be now?
Well, that's a good question. It even goes back to 2014 and 2015. With regards to railway wheels, it's 2019. So these have been in place for quite a considerable time. So the reason why now is one that needs to be asked of the Chinese government.
Is it going to put you off at all from taking China to the WTO in whatever circumstance happens in the future?
We've made very clear that where we think injury has occurred to our industry as a result of measures which are taken by any government, including the Chinese government, that we'll look at all avenues available to us to defend our industry. And if that includes the WTO dispute settlement body, then we will undertake those disputes.
The fact that they also this week decided to say that the Great Barrier Reef should be listed as in danger, there's a few things going on here, right?
Well, once again, from the Australian government's point of view, we want to have a very constructive engagement with the Chinese government. We want to be able to sit down and work through all these issues and to be able to discuss them, because that's the best way that you can resolve issues. Now, unfortunately, at the moment, we're not in a position to be able to sit down at the ministerial level. All the discussions are taking place at the officials level, and I think one of the real positives would be if we could sit down at the ministerial level and discuss these issues, but we're not in a position to do that, and that would help us understand some of the decisions that China's taking, like this one, to take us to the WTO.
Okay, just a couple of quick ones on vaccines and also this quarantine facility in Brisbane. What can you say about that?
So with regards to the quarantine facilities, both in Queensland, in Brisbane and in Western Australia, obviously we've said now for quite a long period of time we want to sit down with the states and territories and look to see what we can do to expand our quarantine systems based on a methodology which includes these facilities being within an hour of a hospital where patients can obviously get care. So we'll continue to work with all states and territory governments. We've had a detailed proposal from the Victorian state government that we're closely considering, and we'll look at other proposals, and especially when it comes to Queensland and WA.
Okay, and in New South Wales at the moment, are you pleased with Gladys Berejiklian's line that she's holding not to shut down states at the moment, which other premiers have decided to do in the past, and she's backing her contact tracing team?
Absolutely. We want state and territory governments to follow the expert medical advice and be proportionate in the measures they put in place to deal with outbreaks of the virus. And that's what the New South Wales state government has done all along. And in particular, when it comes to testing and contact tracing, they have the best systems, I think, almost in the world. And so we back the New South Wales state government, because that means that what they're doing is proportionate, and in particular, the economic damage to livelihoods is minimised.
And so what sort of a message do you think this sends to other states if New South Wales is able to get a hold on this one, bearing in mind that it's her biggest test since the original outbreak last year?
Well, I think what it would demonstrate is that if you can get the testing and the contact tracing in place, that you can minimise the damage to economic livelihoods by being proportionate in your response. And I would hope that other states and territories would look to New South Wales and want to learn. This is a pandemic, it's evolving. We've always got to be looking and learning. And if New South Wales government can do this in a proportionate way, the hope would be other states and territories could follow suit.
And just finally, you heard from the Prime Minister there saying that state leaders were reluctant to allow vaccinated Australians to be able to travel freely. What's your hope on this?
Look, my hope is that we would be able to get a position where they are able to travel freely. This is something which the tourism industry and the aviation sector have backed strongly, this idea that if you've been fully vaccinated, you would be exempt from these border closures.
It's got to be at a certain level though, right?
Well,
a certain percentage.
Obviously, you know, we work through all that detail over time, but the most important thing is if we could get an agreement along those lines, it would back and support the 600,000 jobs in our tourism industry and the hundreds of thousand jobs that are dependent on our aviation sector, and also would give another added impetus for people to get out there and get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Trade Minister Dan Tehan, good to see you.
Thanks,
Talk
Peter.
to you again soon.
Cheers.